Hi again. I went back and was looking at one of our videos, and the audio was really, really bad, so I'm going to redo this one. This is going to replace our AutoCAD for Architecture video number 3, which basically shows you how to use the pattern tool or to use what we used to call an array tool, but basically it also shows you how to use the divide tool. So we're going to go in here and we're going to actually set it up. There's a set of columns in this building that run down the middle right here, basically where a bearing wall would go, but because we want it to be open, we'll need a beam that runs the length of this building, and if we embed it in the floor for the floor joist to connect to, we need bearing along a series of posts down this that will transfer that load to the basement. Now, again, like I said, this is a relatively small building. You could do this with steel and things, but right now we're setting it up to do as if it was timber framed and use some of the timber to help support it as well as be decorative. So we're going to start with something simple. I'm going to make a rectangle here, that's just any old spot, that is 12 inches by 12 inches. Now, the way I did that is this. I typed in REC for my rectangular tool. I click a spot to begin, and then if I use the @ sign, it does everything else from there as a relative coordinate. So if I go at 12, 12, that's 12 on the x-axis and 12 on the y-axis, which is left and right first and then up and down second. So once I do that, I've created a rectangular tool that fits right there. Now, I'm going to get rid of the second one because I really don't need it. The other thing I need to do is determine my distance I'm working with. This distance from here all the way to there is how far I want to span. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. I can either use the dimension tool and function mathematically, or I can use what we call the divide tool. Now, the divide tool takes and mathematically in the computer divides a line or a line segment for us. Now, how's that work? Well, it works this way. So if I go in here and I just type in the command divide, and I select an object, it asks me how many segments I want to divide it into. Well, I would like to have not just a corner post here, but then another 1, 2, 3, 4 posts along here. I don't want one here because it'll butt up along the top of my stairway, so I really don't want the traffic jam going on there. So I'm going to tell it to divide that into 1, 2, 3. I'm going to tell it to do 5 segments. So I do 5. I press my enter key once. Now, you can see itty bitty little marks show up. Now, if I change my PD mode, okay, I'm going to change my PD mode. Actually, it's already a 3. I like the 3 because that creates an X. So I'll leave that alone, but I'm going to change my PD size right now. We're going to make that PD size, say, 6 inches. There, they show up much better. So there's my points that I'm trying to hit. Now, if I move this rectangle I made down here, it's going to be embedded in the wall. It's actually be probably a false timber here if I was doing this. But I can line it up, see it lines up dead center on that. I can go now with my copy tool from here, and I just snap to the center of that, bring it out to this node, and then this node, then this node, and then this node. So it evenly spaces them out, and I have it right down the middle of the house. Now, as I'm looking at this, that'll give me plenty of bearing. I actually don't need this one at all, so I can actually delete it. Oop, I tried to select it the wrong way. So I don't need him. Delete it out. Oh, it's trying to think for me. I hate it when it thinks for me. There we go. Now, these nodes I have in the middle, I actually don't need them. I could leave them if I want. They're on my no plot layer. They would never print. But I'm just removing them. They were just markers. And then this, I'm going to change its layer up here under my wall layer. Actually, under my layer commands, down here to 1-walls. So I'm just going to come down 1 walls right there. There they are. Now, that evenly spaces them. What's the spacing? I don't know. I didn't have to calculate it. So let's do a quick distance. If I go from corner to corner, the distance in between those is 6'4" and 13/16 of an inch. Okay, that's great, but I don't know a cabinet maker that's going to hold to a 1/16 of an inch. So honestly, if I go in here and I say, okay, if I use my units command, I can look at my units. Its precision is set to a 1/16 of an inch. I can go much tighter. I can also, for most contractors, go less. So if I go to an 1/8 of an inch, that's fine. I can still enter it as a 1/16, and it will still recognize it, but the distances I get, the reports I get, my list tools will still show that as only into 1/8. So if that's fine with you and me, that's good to go. Now again, if I use the distance command, this time, I'm at 3/4 of an inch. Do the same thing on this one. 6'4" and 3/4, 6'4" and 3/4. Oops. Let's do one last one from here to there. Now, why is that different? That's because I spaced it for a column that was sitting on the end. Now, the column would have ended up ending right about here-ish. You saw where I was at. So somewhere right about there, where it protruded from the wall. So that throws me off a little bit there, but let's look at the other end too. I'm a little bit wide here too. So visually, it's going to be fine, and I'm going to let it be. Okay, so we're just going to move on from that, but that's the easiest way to use the division tool and the copy tool. We talked about doing array. I didn't actually use the array on this. We'll use it at another point later on, just because it's really didn't feel appropriate right now. But again, thanks for your time, and we'll get this uploaded so you can start functioning. Bye.